Tim, welcome to Products with Purpose. Thanks for being here. Tell us where you're joining us from.
Hello. Or should I maybe say kia ora, because I'm calling in from New Zealand. Or culturally, I'm half Welsh, so Shemai. There we go, we covered all our bases. So yeah, dialing in from New Zealand, Grow Good headquarters.
I'm really glad to have you here. I've been looking forward to this conversation since we talked last. And so let's get started by talking about, before we hear your background story and how you got here, what is Grow Good? What are you doing?
So pretty much, it's been an interesting journey, which we'll get to. But right now, we pretty much are 99.9% focused on helping companies get through the B Corp certification process. So, yeah, helping them understand it, navigate it, get to the point of being able to get that certification. So if people don't know what B Corp is, we can explain a bit more about what that is.
Yeah, we definitely should. I think it's becoming something people are hearing. I know I'm seeing it and hearing it everywhere, but a couple of years ago, I didn't really know that much about it. So I think that'd be good if we go into a little bit of background. But why don't we start with a little bit of your background and how you got here? Yeah,
so I'm originally from the UK. Grew up over there, went to, I guess, what you'd call traditionally a good school, as in your parents pay a lot of money to go there and it was only boys, which apparently in the UK is a marker of a good school. I guess my trajectory in life seemed to have been mapped out for me. It's like you go to a good school, you'll just go to university, and then you'll study a good degree at university, and then you'll get a proper job, which to them would mean medicine, accounting, law, or the military. And you go and do something, noble and useful for society at that level. And I've been on that trajectory. I ended up going to university. I studied medieval history, which is clearly really, really useful. It's mildly useful on quiz nights in the pub, if there's questions on, the Norman conquest, but they don't come up that often. And for me, my path that I thought I could see was joining the military. I wanted to be an army officer in the British Army. That was kind of, what I was pinning my career hopes on. And that was all good until I went to do the selection to join the army, and they said, actually, we don't want you. So it's kind of like, so what do I do now?
Did they tell you why?
Well, basically, I failed the selection criteria. So you do this 3-day psychometric physical tests, and on reflection, there was a couple of them that I know I didn't do too well, but I don't know. I didn't think I'd done that badly, but apparently I had. I had no plan B, and obviously having a degree in history, your only other options are to be a librarian or a history teacher, neither of which were really compelling to me. I went and lived in Australia for a year. And just thought, right, I'll go and find myself, because it's quite common that before you go to university or, at that age, you might go travelling, I guess, for people from the UK, Aussie, New Zealand. So I went to Aussie for a year, did a gap year, met some really cool people. Almost all the people that I met, though, were either ex-military or, had just got into the military. There was massive military connections, which was kind of like, okay, well, this is nice. I've come to the other side of the planet to get away from all of that, and hey, here we are. But that was cool. No, so made some really good mates there. Lived there for about a year, and then thought, look, I want to get back to the UK. I'm just living hand to mouth. Just no money to really go and do anything with, and I can't just do short-term jobs forever. And a good mate of mine was working for Johnson & Johnson as a medical device sales rep, and he just said, mate, I think you'd be, him and I we're very similar personality types. He said, look, I'm doing really well. I think you'd be really good at this. I can give a recommendation to the leadership team, and that will kind of get you through quite a few of the hoops in terms of the recruitment process. So I was like, sure, give it a go. So this was for Johnson & Johnson, and I got onto their graduate training scheme. So pretty competitive scheme, and like I said, partly because I'd had this internal recommendation, you kind of got through the first 2 or 3 stages of the recruitment journey.
Okay.
And I got that job. So I did medical device sales for a year in the UK, selling hips and knees, and then I met a Kiwi girl. And her visa was running out. My sort of 12-month program was running out, and so it was either get married to stay together or move to New Zealand. And I thought, well, New Zealand seems less terminal than getting married at the age of 24. So I guess I kind of thought, well, New Zealand, Australia, they're both pretty much the same. They speak funny and they like rugby and beer. So, how hard can it be to go to New Zealand instead? And I guess the plan was to come here for a year and then just reassess and then probably go back to the UK. But that was 2004. Ended up still in the medical device world over here. Got in working for another large multinational company here. And went out with, we were sort of referred to as Kiwi Girlfriend 1.0. We went out for about another 3 years or so, and then things just, weren't working out. And so we were living in Auckland, which is in the North Island of New Zealand. Mm-hmm. I had an opportunity to move to the South Island. I said, look, I'm kind of going. So I went. And within a couple of months, met the now wife. Stayed in the medical device world for a few years, and then really... 2010, 2011 here in Christchurch, where I'm based, we had a series of massive earthquakes. And those earthquakes, and then 2012, we had our daughter. That sort of 2-year period was really what got me on this path. It's fairly common in terms of like the medical literature that if you have a near-death experience, the birth of a child or the death of someone significant or close to you, any one of those can trigger what's called a subconscious awakening. And I basically had 2 out of 3 of them. And there was a lot of stuff going on in the medical device industry that I guess you kind of see, you watch it, but you kind of watch it go by, and the big corporate PR spin machine just tells you, oh, look, it's all good, nothing to see here. And so there was stuff like one of the companies I worked for, and this is all, it's all in the news, or was in the news. One of the companies I'd worked for essentially knowingly launched a product into the market too soon. One of the surgeon who was running the sort of the trial, he was a shareholder in the company, so it was in his interest that the product, got to market.
Conflict
so they
interest.
had this product out. It hadn't been fully tested in terms of what it was being used for, and the first at least 4 patients that they tried it on died in the operating theatre. And, at the time they kind of spin it and go, well, it's kind of medical misadventure, and, you can't, you're not going to create leap forwards in technology without, taking risk, and, da-da-da. But then, like I say, when you're in it, you kind of go, oh, yeah, I suppose, yeah, it kind of makes sense. And then a couple of years after that, almost every major medical device company was subpoenaed by the US Department of Justice for basically bribing surgeons, was how it was, pitched. So surgeons would be paid to go to conferences, they'd be paid to go and talk at events, they'd be taken to conferences and what have you, but to the level where also some of them were literally like, hey, the new Ferrari is being delivered next week, it'll be, don't stress about it. And I guess all of that came into sharp relief, having gone through the earthquakes in the having had our daughter. And I'm just like, what am I doing? Like, I'm working for these companies that theoretically are about making people's lives better, but actually all they care about is making money. And I'm actively being a part of this in terms of supporting their activity, even though I'm not actually killing the patients myself, but I'm giving agency to this to the type of business that they're doing. And so that was the beginning of me trying to find out, well, what's it all about? Like, is your job as an employee just to support companies to maximize their profit? Because that seems to be what it's all about. And so I went on a bit of a journey of sort of self-discovery to work out, well, what is life all about? And is it just to be happy? Is it just to make money? Like, what is it? And that's when I got onto the purpose journey. And then through that, I stumbled through this internet rabbit hole, and found B Corp. And it's like, okay, so there's a group of, and this would have been 2013, 2014. It's like back then there was about 1,000-ish B Corps. It's like, well, I might be crazy, but there's 1,000 other business owners who are equally crazy, who equally believe that the way we're running the show in terms of like, let's just make as much money as possible, and who cares how we make it. And so, that's how I got into it.
Just kind of pull on the thread of the subconscious awakening and the earthquakes and birth of you said daughter, right?
Yep.
Waking up and kind of asking these more existential questions, and I've had a lot of these moments, a number of these moments over the last, let's say, 10 years also, where I've had questions for myself around getting aligned with myself, and kind of, is this thing that I'm doing, or is this am I supporting something that I don't really believe in? And it took a lot of deep digging. Like, what was that process like for you to, at least in my experience, the realization might happen in a short period of time, but the work that it takes to disentangle yourself from not only the external world that you're committed to, but also kind of the internal wiring of what you've been doing for so long. Like, what was that process like for you?
Horrendous. Still going. This for me is the key to human existence. It's to work out, like, it probably took me 6 years to really get my head around that existential unbundling, and to work out, well, who am I? Who do I think I am? Why am I who I am? How did I end up to be who I am? And all these questions. But this is the key thing. This is in many ways the key to a successful and productive and a life of contentment. I
agree.
And I'm not very smart. It took me 6 years to think about how do you unpack purpose. It took me 6 years to go, actually, just look in the dictionary. What a crazy idea, because people kind of take all these words and they try and work out what they mean. And if you look at the definition of purpose, it's the reason for which something was made or created, and something's use or usefulness. And you kind of go, right, so why was I created? And what unique skills have I got that I can give to society and the planet to make the place better? Like, it's simple. It's really simple. Great. You just go and do that. But then you've got all the conditioning. You've got, but mum and dad want you to be a lawyer, or mum and dad want you to do this. And your school said, no, only you get to, I remember, I used to walk through the town to get to school every day. And I asked the careers master one day, I said, Mr. Townsend, I'm just curious. How do shops work? Do the people in them, do they own the shop? Do they own all the clothes and stuff in them? Or do they rent it? Just how does it work? Boys from this school don't work in shops. So don't worry about it, Timothy. It's like, just, these aren't the droids you're looking for. It's like, you don't need to worry about that. It's like, oh, okay. And so you just kind of ignore that as a whole career choice has now been, I've been told that is not a career choice that I can choose, because you as the school wouldn't want to say that one of our kids has gone into retail. Ooh, imagine that. Ooh. And this is the big thing. So for me, the first part for me was to go, well, actually, who am I? Like, who do I think I am? And I think, having been in sales roles, they're pretty good at getting you to do personality tests on yourself, because they want to know who you are and what motivates you and all the rest of it. So I had a pretty good idea of, I kind of roughly know how I approach the world. So then the next case is like, well, am I actually who I think I am? Or have I been created by other things? And that was...
those are the questions.
Yeah, and the key thing that helped me unbundle that was a thing called Proust's questionnaire. I don't know if you've heard of this. So back in the late 1800s, because they didn't have Facebook and TikTok and whatever else, entertainment consisted of you writing a questionnaire and then going to the tea house or the coffee room and sharing your questionnaire with your mates. And then your mates would go away for a week, and you'd come back the next week, and they'd come back with their answers, and you'd all laugh at them and go, I can't believe that Eli said that. Proust's questionnaire is used by fiction writers to create characters. So I think it's 35 or 36 questions on, what's things like, what are your values? What would be your motto? How would you like to die? Who is the historical character that you would most like to meet?
Nice.
What are the virtues that you most like and dislike in a man or a woman? And so fiction writers have taken it to be able to really create a character and go, like, how would this character turn up and think and feel and be behaving? But if you use it as an introspective piece to review yourself and go, actually, what do I really believe? Not what I say on social media or what I tell my parents because I think that's what they want to hear, but actually, what do I think and feel? And then from that, it's what I kind of call the authenticity gap. There's like this version of you that's been created versus the true version of you. And for me, this is, typically what the midlife crisis comes to, because you have, typically you're having a kid or you have some big existential shock. And it's like...
You realise there's a gap.
There's a massive gap, and those two come crashing together, and you go, I just don't know anymore. And that's the existential... So for me, it was like, who am I? Is that really me? And then working out, well, what led me to be not the true version of me, and to understand where all those kind of sliding door moments were through your life.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. That aligns very similarly, very closely to my experiences. And it was in my early 30s that I started some big like, for example, a business that I'd been building for a number of years, the partnership between myself and my co-founders got really stressful, and that business started, like that partnership started crumbling. And that was one of those sort of moments when I think it got me just asking questions like that. It was the first time I really remember asking. I'd spent the decade of my 20s just working on creating freedom, like what do I need to do to be successful, working hard, building the American dream, but started asking questions like these in my early 30s when I was super stressed out. Things were very shaky. Who exactly am I, and who do I want to become, and like, what am I doing for that? And the next 15 years has been this process of figuring out how was I wired to become someone that really isn't me, and who what is that true inner self? So yeah, fascinating experience. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Go ahead if you have more.
Yeah, I mean, it's what I call the tribalization process. Where you were born, your parents' expectations. And the classic example would be, well, neither. There are expectations of all different kinds. It's like, either we didn't go to university, therefore we're going to make sure absolutely that you do go to university because we recognise, or we went to university, therefore you must go to university, or we didn't go, therefore you shouldn't go because people like us don't. Like all those expectations from parents, society, your peers, your school, all of that basically influences your path in life.
Absolutely.
And I think it's more rare that someone can kind of be immune to that and go, no, actually, I'm not interested in what you're telling me. I know that this is my path. I think the vast majority of people are asleep at the wheel in their own lives. They have this, I love the etymology of words, discontent. I'm not content. I am diseased. I'm not at ease, which manifests with disease. We're just kind of, we know, just look at the meaning crisis in the modern working environment. Like if you look at all the Gallup polls that come out every year, like the vast majority of people are disengaged or actively disengaged. Like, I'm stealing everything I can from your office because I hate this business so much. You know what I mean? It's like, it's insane. I don't think we could have created if we wanted to create a worse system to lock people into sort of existential nightmare, I don't think we could have done better than what we've actually managed to create. You know what I mean? In terms of like a complete system that creates you and then just traps you in this bubble of consumerism and chasing success, which only looks like financial and material success in the vast generalized case of humanity. It's insane.
Something, kind of just on the other side of that coin that I'm excited about is that so many people are really waking up right now and saying, like, we're not willing to, there's enough data sharing and story sharing happening across the planet that people are realizing that they've got to prioritize meaning. They've got to prioritize purpose more.
100%.
I'd love to have a conversation with you maybe offline another time about like the possibility of kids growing up without that expectation from their tribe and their parents that they have to go through all those years of unpacking. But
that's the interesting thing, because if you look at an actual tribe, it's very common that when a child is born, the parents will give them a birth name, and then when they go through the rite of passage as a young adult, which we don't do really, it's not structured. After the rite of passage, and they've had maybe 12 to 15 years of watching the kid in action, it's not uncommon that they have almost like a renaming ceremony where the tribe goes, actually, Eli, we've worked out what your role's going to be. Like, you have these skills and you have this proclivity to be good at this. So this is, we now know what your place is. And so, like, that's what we've always done. It's kind of only recently that we go, no, like, Eli, like, we want you to be a doctor or a lawyer because that's going to make us look like we were good parents, and it's going to be a good job for you, and the family's going to be safe and secure. It's like, okay, I see that, but I'm really rubbish with people and science. But that's okay. Just fudge it. Just give it a go. You'll be fine. I think we need to get back to that, and I don't think it's as far away as we perhaps think or don't even think, which is part of the problem. Yeah.
I love these kind of conversations, and so that process that you went through, kind of realizing, that what you were doing and who you had been wired to be was not really you, and trying to figure those things out. And now, like, leading that, like, get us to the point of of Grow Good and why you've chosen this. Like, why is this more aligned for you?
Yeah. Did I choose it or did it choose me? There we go. That's the the thug life, whatever it is. Yeah. So I got to a point. I can see it right now. Part of my job part of the job as a medical rep is you go into the operating room for the Americans, or the operating theatre if you are of the Commonwealth persuasion. And part of your job is to help the surgical team, help the surgeon, make sure that the procedure goes well. If they get stuck or they're not sure about how things work when it comes to your product, you kind of navigate and guide them through that. So I was standing in this operating theatre. The surgeon was being a jackass, as they want to be. Orthopedic surgeons, like typically A-player kind of guys, mainly guys. They just want everything to be perfect and the best. And if it's not going well, they just start shouting and berating everyone in the room. So they're kind of doing his typical thing. And I'm just like, I know how much money you earn, and I know how much money you're kind of gaming in the system, and you're abusing these two nurses who are paid a pittance and are just doing the best that they can. I'm done. And I held my tongue. I almost felt like saying, dude, you're a jackass. Like, I'm done. But I thought, no, I don't want to burn my bridges completely. But I basically went home that lunchtime. We lived a couple of blocks away from the hospital that I was working at the time. I went home and I said to my wife, I'm done. I just can't do this anymore. Like, I've seen too much. I know how this thing works. I just cannot do it. Cannot do it. And so I ended up applying for, about 80 different jobs, because the medical device world is really insular, and, you kind of bounce between jobs because everyone knows everyone. It's like really connected industry. And I thought, well, maybe it's just the medical industry. Like, I've had my only real working life experience has been in this one industry. So I just applied for jobs in all sorts of different industries. I thought, look, we'd moved up to Auckland post-earthquakes to have our daughter. So I thought, right, we want to get back to Christchurch. I want to get anything but medical, and I want to try and get a leadership role because I'm in my early 30s. I need to have a leadership position on my CV by the time I'm 30.
Yeah.
And I ended up being hired as general manager for a firm of surveyors and engineers. Like, it was completely random, but they wanted someone with BD experience, not with technical background. They wanted someone to, lead the sales growth of a new office they were building and build a team around. I thought, wow, this sounds like pretty cool. But, in the rebuild of Christchurch, so this is 2014, they kind of polled the community, and everyone living in Christchurch said, we want a green, sustainable, livable, walkable city that is community and family friendly and interconnected. Great. So the public has spoken. What did we get? We got a city that was cheap and nasty and built around the car and disconnected communities, and it was all built around the property developers getting their buildings up as cheap and as quick as possible. And being in that industry and listening to the property developers and just watching what they wanted to build, it was like, I don't care how warm the building is, I just want it cheap and quick. And it's like, right, okay, so it's not just the medical industry. Okay, so the commercial property industry is the same. And then being in that industry, you would bump into lots of other groups like banking, finance, insurance, some of the companies that were tenants in some of the buildings that we might be, doing some advice around. And again, everyone it just came back to dollar. And it's like, none of you see the impact that you're having by taking the quick, easy financial route here. Like, you're creating all this damage and you're destroying the planet. And so it kind of really just crystallized that, hang on, it wasn't just medical. It seems to be that everyone just cares about making as much money, and they just really don't care about anything else. And because I'd had that kind of moment of clarity, and by this point it was fairly well crystallized, it was just like, this is just insane. And so I got out of that industry and I thought, right, I want to get into coaching and training. Like, it's something that I'd thought about whilst I was selling medical. Like I say, we got sent on a lot of training programs because you have to be able to, outwit in many ways psychologically a highly trained orthopedic or neurosurgeon. Like, they're smart people. So you need to be on your game when it comes to psychology and, communication and what have you. And I thought, well, I reckon I could take a lot of that content and probably I thought I could do better. And so I ended up getting hired into a role as a full-time sales trainer for a small company based in sort of one of the provincial areas of New Zealand. And my plan really was to stay with them for a few years, just get, trained up, build up a bit of a Rolodex, and then go out on my own. But after about 9 months, they'd kind of overestimated their forward bookings. So they hired 5 of us at the beginning of the year. And by the end, well, pretty much just before the end of the year, the 5 of us were made redundant. So late 2015, I just thought, I've kind of been telling everyone else that they should be a B Corp for about a year now. I tried to get the property company and they were just like, well, does it make us more money? And I said, I don't know, but it seems like a really cool thing to do. The training company were pretty interested, but they were a small family run business, just didn't have the capacity. And back then there was still like 2 B Corps in New Zealand. So they were kind of like, what? Yeah, it kind of looks interesting, but not really sure what you're talking about, Tim. So I kind of thought, well, look, I've been telling everyone else that they should be a B Corp. I've got an opportunity now. My daughter was kind of just at preschool. My wife was just looking at getting back into the workforce herself. And I just thought, if I don't give my own thing a go now, I'm going to go and take a job that I dislike, that I know is complete BS again. And it will be 10 years. I'll be 10 years down the line and I'll hate my life. And I just said to my wife, look, can I just give it a go?
So tell me, how did you first discover B Corps, and why did you, what led you to start telling other people they, kind of championing?
I think it was 2 parts to it. So having gone down this purpose journey and trying to work out, like, there's got to be ways that companies can try and do some good, whilst they're doing what they do. So in the property consultancy, I was trying to work out, is there a qualification or some training I could get? Because I had no construction or property experience per se, whereas everyone else was like a chartered surveyor, an engineer, or what have you. So I felt like I need to try and get some kind of qualification to prove that I know something in the building industry. So there's a group over here. Well, they have them in most countries called the Green Building Council. So the New Zealand Green Building Council. So I did a training program through them to become a green building practitioner, I think it was called, which basically means you understand the principles of green building and you can provide some advice on that. So I'd kind of gone down a bit of a rabbit hole there and just been searching courses and certifications and what have you. But then the other part of it was the internal culture in the company was pretty toxic. And so I was kind of Googling certifications for me that I could pursue, whilst at the same time looking for kind of HR fixes and cultural frameworks that I could maybe introduce to at least get my Christchurch office humming, and which would then kind of prove to the Wellington and Auckland offices where they were pretty dysfunctional, like, hey, this is working. And kind of through that, I just ended up in this internet rabbit hole and came across this B Corp thing. I thought, wow, like, this is really interesting. Like, it's social impact, environmental impact, treating your staff. I was like, okay, this looks pretty cool. And I thought, well, typically, like, stuff like that just isn't in New Zealand yet. So I thought, I bet there won't be one in New Zealand. Maybe we could be the first company in New Zealand. I think I've always liked being like the first, or doing something different anyway on a personal note.
Nice.
And I had a quick look and I was like, damn it, there's 2 of them in New Zealand. So I bet there can't be one in the South Island. I was like, damn it, there's one in Christchurch. So I rang this guy, Steve Arder. Well, I emailed him.
You're supposed to be happy that there are people doing it.
Well, I am now, but back then it was like, come on, I want to be the first. So I emailed Steve and said, hey, look, I've just stumbled across this B Corp stuff. Could I just come and have a coffee with you and see what's what? And so I booked, like a 45-minute meeting with him in his office, and I left about 3 hours later, just with, my head just exploding with all these ideas, and like, oh my word, like, he gets it. Like, this guy runs a business, he's the CEO of a business, and he gets all the stuff that I've been talking about, that I don't understand why everyone else is doing all this crazy stuff. And so that was just like really, really cool. And so I just said to him, look, how can I help? So he was B Corp #1 in New Zealand, and so he was really pushing the conversation. They would run open days or open evenings in their warehouse, and just get people to come in and have a look, see a B Corp, what does it mean? So I would like be handing out drinks at events, whatever, helping him organise movie nights and stuff like that. And so I then got connected with B Lab. So my business is a certified B Corporation, but B Lab is the organisation that runs the certification framework and runs the whole thing globally. So I got connected with the CEO of B Lab at the time. And I was like, just what do you need doing? Like, I will pretty much do anything that you need doing in New Zealand. Like, and I don't care if you don't pay me. Like, I want people to know about this thing. And I was really like, come on, you just find any money, like pay for some flights for me. And I'll just go and like I said, I'll get a list of all the CEOs of the top 500 companies in New Zealand. I'll personally send them a note and go and meet with them and explain to them what this thing is. But they were just, B Lab has historically been really under-resourced. And it was just like, we can't even pay, we can't even buy you a coffee, almost. So after about a year of engaging with them, they said, look, we're going to give you the title of B Corp Ambassador for New Zealand. Because I was literally like this, I think his name's Diogenes, I think it is. He was like one of the crazy sort of philosophers.
My son talks about him all the time.
Was he the guy who lived in a barrel and sort of walked around? Yeah, he sort of walked, well, there you go, your son's onto it. He was kind of walking around saying, show me an honest man, and I kind of felt like I was him, like, show me a B Corp, you should be a B Corp. But it's like, who are you? I just like B Corp. It's like, well, at least now I can say I'm the official B Corp ambassador, so I have some legitimacy as to why I'm talking to you about B Corp. So I had that for about a year or so, and then, got made redundant, and I thought, okay, look, I'm talking this B Corp stuff, and I don't even have one myself. So, late 2015, the stars kind of aligned, and I said, right, if I don't do this now, it ain't going to happen. So
Nice.
I did it, and here we
So
are.
for the people that, thank you for the story. That's amazing. I love it. For people out there who maybe have heard of B Corp, or now they've heard of it because we're talking about it, but still don't know, what's just a little quick background. Yep. I'd really like to talk with the remaining time we have. I'd like to talk mostly about how can we move forward? How can people work with you? How can they use this? But what's the background, purpose? How did B Corp? Just give people a B Corp overview in a couple minutes.
So B Corp's got a really, I call it, I guess, with the Māori culture that we have here, there's a concept called the creation myth story. Like how did your culture, how did your race, or I guess for want of a better word, kind of arrive here? And the creation myth story for B Corp is really cool. So the guy who co-founded it was a guy called J. Cohen Gilbert. And he used to be the CEO of And One, which was a massive basketball brand. And basically his whole existence had been chasing Nike. It's like, when we beat Nike, we can sort of rest and we'll all be happy. And that was his plan until September 11th, 2001, when his sister was trapped in the Twin Towers. She got out. And then about a week or two later, one of his colleagues at And One passed away. And he had that existential moment. It's like, what am I doing? Like, who cares if we're number 2 or number 20 to Nike? Like, life is short, life is precious. What am I doing? And so they instigated a whole lot of stuff that would be like B Corp. So they looked at their supply chain and made sure that people were paid well in their supply chain. They offered employee ownership to their staff. They created a community outreach program to at-risk youth in Philadelphia, which is where they were based. Massive problems with at-risk youth just not having opportunities. And so the business went from strength to strength. And then fast forward to 2005, and Jay's like, I'm kind of out. I've done my dash. I want to move on. They take the business to Wall Street, and the first thing the bankers do is go, look, you've got a great brand, but the numbers are terrible. You're giving away all this equity. So we need to rip all that out so we can sell the business. So he sold the business and then got together with Bart Houlihan, his CFO, and Andrew Cassoy, one of the Wall Street bankers. And he's like, I kind of feel a bit bad that we sold out there. So I've been thinking, why don't the three of us start a new business and we'll build in all this good stuff? Because it felt pretty good and, everyone kind of loved it. And so they looked at creating like a pizza franchise and some other consumer goods brands and what have you. And the guys like drinking a bit of whiskey, and I reckon a few glasses turned into a few bottles of whiskey. And one of them was like, well, instead of creating one business, what if we created a movement of businesses that aim to be the best for the world, not the best in the world? And so that's kind of like the creation myth story of B Corp or B Lab. So this is 2006. They went to 10 of their mates and said, look, we've created this certification framework, which basically looks at your business and how it's performing. And is it, the B in B Corp stands for benefit. Is it benefiting more than just your shareholders, or is it just looking to make as much money? So that was the beginning of it. So B Corp certification is basically a verification for businesses that want to prove that they're balancing purpose and profit. So rather than just focusing on shareholder return, profit maximization, B Corps have to consider the impact of their operations on their workers, their community, the environment, their customers, their supply chain, their broader stakeholders.
So all stakeholders.
Yeah, true stakeholder capitalism rather than just let's just make as much money and we don't really care how we do that.
So we could really think of B Corp as the framework to ensure stakeholder capitalism is happening, or stakeholder. And it genuinely is, because now in most Western democratized nations, to become a B Corp, you have to be willing and able to update your constitution or other corporate governing document to include a purpose clause and a stakeholder clause, which basically says we will at all times consider the impact of our operations on all our stakeholders. So whereas if you're the CEO of a company in the US or the UK's Companies Act has changed recently, but in most developed nations, your only job as a CEO is to make more money next quarter than you did the previous quarter. And to do that, you typically have to go, well, yeah, we are going to close that division because we're not going to make number unless we increase our profitability. So we just have to sack those people, or we're going to find a cheaper supplier or whatever. So, yeah, it's a genuine move to get people to have to consider, actually, is this in the long-term interest of all of our stakeholders, or is it just about us maximizing profit this month? So we are seeing, we're hearing this name, B Corp, more often now. We're seeing the logo on people's websites, especially I'm seeing it on the websites of companies that I really respect. But I'd love to go a little deeper on what makes it so legitimate. In other words, what is it about the B Corp certification that ensures that an organization is really doing this shit, right?
Yep.
And then maybe a little bit about what are some of maybe a few specific stories, or what are some of the benefits that employees and other stakeholders are seeing from companies making this choice.
Yep. So, like, I'm always really clear to say that B Corp is not a silver bullet and it is not perfect. But it is, in my opinion, the best and only solution that we've really got that looks to solve any or all of the challenges that we're facing collectively as a species. And so the B Corp assessment, it looks at your business across 5 areas of your business. So it looks at your governance performance. So how transparent are we in terms of our ethics reporting? You know, do we have 50 shell companies ending up somewhere in the Bahamas and no one can work out where the money's going? It looks at your how you treat your workers. So do we compensate our staff well? Do we provide opportunities for career development and so on, and training and so forth? It looks at our community impact. So community is it's a bit of a funny one because it's kind of like a hodgepodge of different things. It looks at your supply chain, if you have one. So where are you getting your stuff from and how do you treat your supply chain? It looks at diversity across your ownership, your board, your leadership and your staff. It looks at your charitable work. So are you doing volunteering, in-kind product donations or just cash donations to a charity? It looks at your environmental footprint, and then it looks at how do you treat your customers, and even what are you selling? You know, and if your product has an inherent benefit to your customers. So I like it. I hate the word holistic, but it is holistic. There's plenty of other certifications that will just measure your carbon, or they'll just prove that you are child labour free, or that you are living wage certified. So B Corp is kind of almost like the Google of certification systems, because it pulls in all these other things that you might be doing under one certification. The other reasons why I like it is it's globally recognized and it's independently verified. So to become a B Corp, you do an initial self-assessment, and it's free to take that initial assessment, and you can play around with it and go through that assessment as many times as you want. But to get, if you can see it behind me, my little certificate here behind me, to get the certification, to get the independent validation and to prove that the claims that you're making are true, you pay your money to go through an independent audit process with B Lab. So someone comes and reviews your business, reviews your questions, and they go, great, well, Tim, you claim here that you're doing this. Can you give me an example of how you do that? And you provide an example. And then they go, great, well, now what I'll need to see is a spreadsheet showing me your supply chain, where they're based and how much you spend with each one to prove that you're sourcing X% of your material from local suppliers. Great. Okay, well, I'll go and do that for you. I'll download that from my accounting software and prove that to you. So
I'd love to get into, you know, if I'm hearing this as a business owner, there's probably some little bit of nervousness or even fear around, you know, being that transparent and vulnerable. And am I going to find places where I can't change things easily and I can't change them enough to get here? But before we go into those challenges, which I know that's something that you exist to help people through, can you share with us a couple stories or just some of the things that you're seeing or you've heard about where companies that have made the decision to go through this process, like, what are the payoffs? What are the benefits? What are the things, you know, some stories that, why is it worth doing?
Yep. So, I mean, at the high level, generically, we sort of talk to people that there are 4 main groups of people that every business bumps into, and that's customers, employees, some kind of supply chain, and typically there's some money involved. So either it's an investor or there's, you've got a bank of some description. And all 4 of those are looking at your business in the middle and starting to ask the questions, either directly or at least, if not in their own head, like, what is Eli actually up to? Like, he's making some claims here, but is that true? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'll send an email. So I've yet to see any evidence that would show that becoming a B Corp is bad for your business. I mean, no one's ever sent that to me. I have got reams and reams and reams of evidence and stats and documentation showing that B Corp positively impacts your business. So I guess like one probably interesting example would be, so there's a company here based in Christchurch called Kathmandu, and they used to be, so they sell outdoor clothing, kind of a bit like Patagonia. And historically, their whole model has been, stack them high, sell them cheap. So it was always like buy 2, get 1 free, poor quality material, just high volume, sell as many as we can. And they got to a point where I guess their sustainability and brand team were kind of like, actually, do you know what? I don't think this is going to be the future of retail, particularly in the outdoor space. And so Tim Loftus, who's a mate of mine, was the brand manager trying to convince the team that they should look at, doing better in sustainability. And I'll send a link to, it's called the Dunphy model of sort of uptake on sustainability. I don't know if you've heard of that. Dunphy, yeah, Dunphy. And basically it's sort of, so, to begin with, you're kind of actively resistant to doing any good around sustainability because it seems all fluffy and woo-woo and it's like, whatever. But what Tim's a smart operator, and he sat down with like the CFO and the CEO one day, and he said, well, look, let's take sustainability off the table. He said, do you know how much we spend every year lighting all our retail stores? And the CFO was kind of like, no, I don't actually. And Tim's like, well, I can tell you, it was something like $2.2 million a year we're spending on just lighting in our stores. He said, what if I could halve that for you? And the CFO's like, well, yes, clearly that would be of interest. And he goes, great. They're called LEDs. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, there's multiple examples where just looking at doing good through the social and or environmental lens has a business benefit. Yeah. So that's one example. We're definitely anecdotally, people that we've helped with B Corp here, they are saying like we're having potential employees just email us and say, I want to come and work for you because you're a B Corp. And I kind of just, from that, I'm anticipating that you can be good people to work with. And in general, the vast majority of B Corps are run by good people with good intent. And so, yeah, we're definitely seeing so many benefits from people. If you do it authentically and you fully integrate the learnings and the opportunities from the assessment, it's just a huge win-win. Yeah,
that's awesome. Thank you. So talk to us a little bit about if somebody out there is a little bit afraid of digging into the process, kind of a little bit of fear of the unknown, and what can you tell them about the process itself? And
so it's really interesting. I think that there's a lot of people that, like you said, they're scared to kind of look. It's like, oh, I don't think we're going to be doing very well. Well, at some point you're going to have to look because, this trend is not going away anytime soon. So I think it's so much better if you can look, front foot it, be brave and honest that we're not doing so well in some areas.
Just lean into it.
Yeah, because the key thing to remember is no one's perfect. Right. To become a B Corp, you need to score 80 out of 200 points on the assessment. There is no 200-point B Corp currently. So no one's won B Corp. No one is like, we are perfect. There's nothing more for us to do. So even the highest scoring B Corp still have got work to do. Like everyone is on a journey. And increasingly, I think people will respect you more for being honest and vulnerable and saying, look, we realize that this isn't great. But
I agree.
When we built this business 20 years ago, we didn't know that. And it was a different time. And I think in general, the vast majority of people will respect you for being honest about it and going to your community of stakeholders and saying, but we want to make it better. So can you let us know what you think we should do? So much better. There was a classic example here. There's a chain of, it's kind of like a Target, I guess, type store called Farmers. And it would have been about 2017 or 2018, maybe. A mum emailed them and said, hey, I'd just like to know a little bit more about your supply chain and specifically where do you source your kids' clothing from? To which their reply was, I'm very sorry, madam, but that information is classified. Well, I'm now imagining 6-year-old children making my clothes. I'm not imagining that it's amazing because if you don't want to tell me about it.
Yeah.
And so we've got this really interesting period I think we're in right now where there's greenwashing and purpose washing, people just making vastly overinflated claims about the good that they're doing.
Yes.
There's a next group in the middle kind of going, la, 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 I don't want to, in case people throw rocks at me and say I'm rubbish, I'm just not going to admit to anything. But then on the other extreme, it's a new phrase I've heard recently called green hushing, which is where people are actually doing really, really cool stuff but don't want to talk about it. Yeah, for fear of being criticised.
Hesitant to brag or...
Yeah. So, but I kind of think, whether you want to use it as a marketing play or whatever, it's like people are hungry for good news stories. They want to hear companies doing cool things that are solving big problems or at least not making the planet worse or people worse. It's like people like that.
I totally agree. And I think this is a really important thing for all of us to be looking at, thinking about, evaluating, noticing how are we showing up in this way, because everything you just talked about fascinates me a lot. I think we're in a period of time where you're right. It can be so powerful and rewarded by culture and society when we are transparent and vulnerable. But then there's this fear of the cancel culture where it's super it feels so risky to be vulnerable because it feels like there's so much, danger.
Yeah.
But I think the reality is that when we drop all of that fear and we're just honest about the process, it is rewarded. Like it is.
100%.
And because everybody wants, and when we're authentically trying to improve and we're authentically looking at what we're not doing well and we're saying to ourselves and even willing to show other people, if we can tell those stories more openly, we can be examples for other people. We can be influencing other people and showing them the path, because the people who are doing it well, if they don't show show others that path, then there's no model.
Yeah.
So I think those of us who are, doing our best should be more, just broadcast a little bit more, not to brag, not to say I'm doing it perfectly, but to show a model.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think it links back to the whole purpose thing, because, purpose is, the reason for which something was made or created, use or usefulness. But within the human context, it's also you being the truest version of you. It's like, if you look at the, and this kind of overlaps to, but if you can be the most authentic version of your business that's pushing for the best that it can do with the constraints and the resources that you've got, no one can ask for more than that. I mean,
exactly.
They can, but if you genuinely can't be doing any more, you can sleep at night going, look, I know we're not perfect, but we're doing the best that we can. And, that level of contentment is actually kind of what we're all looking for, but
totally
it gets
agree.
hidden amongst all the other marketing messaging of, no, just have a faster car with a bigger house and go on a nicer holiday.
Yeah. A whole other topic.
Yeah.
Well, with the few minutes that we've got left, can you talk to us a little bit about, how do you go about helping companies? Who are the companies you want to be helping, and how could people engage with you if they're interested in this?
Totally. So the B Corp Impact Assessment, if you want to go through it and get it all done, it's kind of like you have to take an open book exam, but you've not been told that you need to take an exam, and the exam's actually in Swahili. And basically, we're the book that you can bring in, and we're kind of like some kind of Hogwarts book that talks, and it can translate lots of funky languages, including Swahili. So basically, we have a process that just makes it really efficient. We try and make it fun. It's because it can be it's a pretty dry online checkbox assessment that you need to go through, which is not that fun, really. So we try and bring a bit of humour, make it a bit of fun. We're also really, really dogmatic about bringing your team on the journey, because the worst you can do, and we see this happen time and time again, a company will go and do it by themselves, and they'll have one person in the company who's gone through the assessment by themselves. They sit in a queue for a few months. They finally get verified, and then they send an all-company email, hey, everyone, we're a B Corp. And people go, well, we're a C Corp, and why aren't we an A Corp? Like, this means
nobody understands
nothing
what it means.
Yeah, so we're really dogmatic about making you bring your team on the journey, because if you just nail the internal employee journey, you're going to pay, get your return on investment for any investment that you might need to make on the journey. You're going to get that back like 100 times. So literally we just sit down either one-on-one, or we work in cohorts if industry groups kind of align, or if you've got a similar kind of product type or service type. And literally we just go through the assessment with people line by line and go, right, what do you understand by this question? And people normally go, we think it means that. And I go, no, it doesn't mean that. It actually means this. And they go, right. And then they go, no, we're not doing that. Or they go, yeah, we are doing that. So yeah, we just take them through that process. We have loads of resources for people. So there's examples where, for a lot of small to medium businesses, you might not have a code of ethics and a whistleblower policy, but you kind of go, well, actually, that's not a bad thing to do. And yeah, we do have a pretty big team now, bigger than I kind of thought. Oh yeah, we do have 10 people. So maybe actually having a whistleblower policy is not a bad thing. Cool. So we've got like templates and resources where we've got a white label copy of stuff like that. Like, that's yours, put your logo on it, tell everyone that you've got it, educate people what it is and why you've got it. But, we've done the heavy lifting for you. And the other thing we're really big on is we've got a community where all our clients that we're working with come and join the community. And like classic example, Jamie, who's got a business here based in New Zealand, really cool little B Corp. They make edible coffee cups. It's like out of this sort of biscuity material. So you drink your coffee, then you eat your cup, zero waste. Fantastic. He's just launched in the UK.
Well, not zero waste.
Not totally zero waste, but pretty close to zero, but good waste.
Sorry.
He's just got his first employee, and he sort of messaged in the community, "Hey, has anyone got a template for an offer of employment?" And Wendy, who's from Kin Recruitment, was like, "Yeah, I'll send you one." Cool. So just trying to help everyone. And we've had one lady in our group get sponsorship for her podcast from one of the other members in our group. So we just want to get a community of really cool businesses who want to be the best for the world, like all B Corps, and just help us all get on and do some really cool stuff. That's basically what we're about.
I got a selfish question. Where are you guys organizing? What tool are you using to keep the conversations in the community connected?
So currently we're using Facebook. We just got a Facebook group. We are looking at a couple of other options. Facebook being Facebook. It's interesting. Like we did a poll a few months ago and said, look, Facebook, yay or nay, and people were kind of like, it was split. So people were like, yeah, Facebook is easy because I go on Facebook. Then others are like, no, I hate Facebook. I'm never on here and it's annoying, so I don't see stuff. I don't think there's any easy answer. We've got
seems like Discord is becoming a community center, but I'm just curious. We don't have to go too far on that.
We'll have a chat.
I'd love to hear what you guys come up with and what you learn, because I think this is a gap in the world that isn't. There's no consensus yet. The latest one I've seen
is called Circles or Circles. Yeah, that looks pretty good. We've got a few things we want to. There's a couple of other communities we want to build around the whole B Corp thing. Mm-hmm. Yes, we're just looking at that, and I think over Christmas I'm probably going to commit to that and start building some stuff over Christmas, and then have it ready to launch next year.
I'd love to keep talking to you about that. So for those people out there that might be interested, what's the best way to kind of engage with you to learn more?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends where you are on the journey. If you're kind of like, we know what B Corp is, we want to go. Just if you go to growgood.co, you can book a call with me. We can have a chat. We can see if we can help you. If you're kind of like, this B Corp thing sounds mildly interesting, you can download a free ebook from our website, which is I've self-titled it "The Definitive Guide to B Corp." Feedback has been it's been a really good overview of what B Corp is, why you should maybe look at it. It's got some stats around employees looking for this kind of stuff and customers and what have you. So it's a pretty good high-level overview of what B Corp is, what the journey looks like. So those would be, and always happy to connect on LinkedIn. Semi-regular posting of content through LinkedIn would be my main sort of platform. Yeah,
nice. We'll link to those things in the show notes. Awesome. Well, so just for the conversation today to this point, I really enjoy it, and I've really enjoyed it, and I appreciate what you're doing. Just a couple of wrap-up questions that I like to ask. When you look at the world, your world, whatever you're seeing, kind of the world you see through your lens, what's something that when you look forward 10 to 20 years that you see a trend that makes you really optimistic?
So my kind of my vision, my thoughts would be that within 20 years, B Corp will be the benchmark for business.
Standard.
Like, if you're not, and we're already seeing this. So like Xero, one of the world's biggest accounting, online accounting tools, they just launched a partnership with a carbon tracking tool that like talks to Xero, so you can kind of report that. I don't think we're far off. Yeah, that going to become the standard. Probably not, maybe not B Corp as a fairly rigorous standard, but I think as a business, it's no longer just you do your tax return and you pay some tax. It's like, have you done anything socially? Have you done anything environmentally? Are your staff, have you got good engagement internally? I kind of think that's where we're going to go.
Agree. I love it. And if you could recommend a book to listeners, what would it be?
Sorry, this was a good one. When you sent me this one, I was like, oh man. Because just recently, I have just been all in on podcasts. I feel bad. I've got a good mate of mine. He just sends me book recommendations. I can't remember. There's a Japanese word which describes books that you own that you will never read. But anyway,
is there? Of course, there is.
Yeah. But one of the books that I just loved reading was The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. And
I've heard that's good.
I've actually just recently read a book. So interesting fact about him: his dad was originally from Haiti, or as it was the Dominican Republic, I think it used to be called before it was called Haiti. So his dad was black, and he was a general in Napoleon's army. And I've just read a biography about his life, and those two together are pretty cool because you kind of see where it's going. But for those of you who haven't watched the movie or read the book, The Count of Monte Cristo is based about a guy who was imprisoned for a crime he didn't commit. And then the rest of the book is about how he then meets all the people that led to him being arrested, how he confronts them. I don't know, it's kind of like a really cool story about someone who does good out of really bad situation. And sort of,
Nice.
I think it underlines just a sense of justice that I feel. It's like, no, you should be held to account for doing something that's bad. And he certainly gets his revenge.
Thank you for that recommendation. I haven't read any fiction in a long time, so kind of itching to read some fiction. I'll add that to my list. Thank you.
It's all yours.
I recently read a book that I would ultra highly recommend, very quick read, called Long Path by Ari Wallach.
Right.
And in this book, he talks about what kind of an ancestor do you want to be?
Ooh,
and
nice.
I think you would really enjoy this book. But the reason I bring it up is just kind of in closing. Thank you for the being an ancestor. It's like thinking about one of the things he talks about in the book. He says that Mother Teresa said one of the problems with humans is that we draw the circle of our family too small.
Yeah.
And so thinking about descendants, just the amount of people in generations to come that the work you're doing is impacting. And so I just want to say thank you for the work you're doing and
appreciate it.
The impact that it's going to have down the line.
That's cool. I think I talk about that with the Welsh flag. So I'm half Welsh.
I remember you said that. Yeah. Tell us.
It's like, the Welsh flag is a red dragon with a green bottom half and a white top half behind it, representing the sort of the ground and the sky. And the Welsh dragon comes more immediately from a guy called Uther Pendragon, who, if King Arthur did exist, he was possibly a close blood relative. And it's like, well, where did he get it from? Well, he got the red dragon from the Draco Legion, which was a Roman cavalry legion active in Britain. Where did they get it from? Well, they got it from Dacia, which is ancient Romania. Where did the Dacians get it from? We don't know. And so I look at the Welsh flag as a symbol that I am the current holder of a connection that goes back to ancient Dacia. And it's the thing, I'm the next Jones in line. Well, am I doing all right as a Jones, or am I being a bit of a dick? It's like, I think I'm doing all right on balance. But yeah, I think I totally agree. It's a really powerful thing to think about. Am I honouring who basically died to get me here? Who had their lives to get me here? And for me, the immediate one was, and this kind of was the catalyst. All it was, having a daughter. It's like, what am I leaving to her? But yeah, you start extending that. Yeah, we're really bad in the West at thinking anything longer than a month.
Yeah, that's what the book is all about, is the problems with short-termism. And I think you'll enjoy the book.
Well, then add it to my pile.
Thank you for redefining what it means to keep up with the Joneses then.
Exactly.
Awesome. All right. On that note.
Cheers, man.
Thank you, Tim. Really enjoyed it.
Likewise.
All right. We'll just cut it there. And thank you so much. Cool. Really enjoyed it. I've got a speaking engagement I got to run to pretty quick, but just quickly, do you have any feedback you could think of for me? Anything you think we can improve?
That was great. No, good chats. Perfect. I think it flowed
enjoyed
well.
it.
Yeah, man.
Two other questions I'd like to ask. What could you think of that I could be doing to support you right now?
Whew, good question. Just, any shout outs or connections that, people who you think like, hey, look, actually, you just should be a B Corp. Like, that would be super cool.
I have it in my mind to push this internally with my leadership team for us. And I would love to actually, arrange a cohort of other companies we could do this with together. So that's definitely on my mind. And got some other ideas in mind as well. I'll definitely float them around.
Yep. We'll make something happen.
Last question. Is there, who could you think of that I should either interview or that I should know, if there's anyone you could think of?
Let me have a ponder on that one.
Yeah, just keep it in mind.
Yeah, there's a few sort of tech-based companies that have they're on the B Corp journey. Certainly that I'm connected with locally. There's one guy, Dan Fowley. He started a company here called Trinio, and they went through B Corp and then sold to a B Corp, and then that B Corp got sold to Salesforce. That could be an interesting story in terms of like a CEO founder who went on the money journey, then kind of connected to the purpose journey, and then I'll give that some thought.
Okay, that'd be amazing. Thank you. All right, well, we'll be in touch with scheduling when this will go live, and
let me know.
Looking forward to talking soon. Thanks so much, man.
Have a good talk.
Talk soon. Cheers.
Bye.